You wanna have sex?
You mean use my cock?
So I just finished watching Fallout the other day, and let me just say this season was a pleasant surprise. I'm always skeptical about video game adaptations that make themselves into the cinematic universe, and vice versa about video games made from successful movies, but I think it's safe to say that this TV show, much like HBO's The Last of Us, don't really count as video game adaptations, mainly because they're just live action remakes of a really good story. And I'll admit, I downloaded the Fallout games last year, but I never got around to playing them. Then once I heard so much positive things about this TV show and the fact that Jonathan Nolan was directing this, I went ahead and gave it a shot. And honestly, I can say it's really good. I thought this TV show was going to be full of like some first person shooter scenes, and I'm really glad that it wasn't focusing on the game version of Fallout, but more about the story. I was afraid that this TV show was going to be a lot like the Super Mario Bros. Movie, and though that movie isn't a bad movie by any means, Super Mario Bros. Just doesn't really have a narrative that really has a hook on people, much like the Five Nights at Freddy's movie, The Last of Us, and now the Fallout TV shows, that all three make for a pretty good video game adaptation. To kind of give you a rundown on how this narrative plays out, the story starts off in present time where we are introduced to Walton Giggins, who's playing Cooper Howard, a movie star and ex-marine that is throwing a party at his fancy ass house with his family and friends. Then some older gentlemen start to make fun of Cooper and ask him to hold his thumb up. And the reason why they're asking this is because they're kind of just making fun of Cooper because it's his signature pose from him being like such a huge movie star. But there's a bit of backstory to this signature pose. But because in the event of a nuclear fallout, your thumb can be used to indicate exactly how much danger you're in. This is the main reason why you see the Fallout boy holding his thumb up. Then Cooper tells us this phrase that he learned while he was in the Marines. If the cloud is smaller than your thumb, then run to the hills. If the cloud's bigger than your thumb, then don't bother running. Then moments after, a bunch of nukes start striking everywhere in California. Quickly after, everyone starts making their ways to these vaults. Mind you, there's 100 vaults scattered around the US. Then at this point in the show, I figured we were going to have a 20-year time jump like The Last of Us did, but instead we get a 219 years jump in time. Then we are introduced to the people who live in Vault 33, with our main character starring actress Ella Purnell, who's playing Lucy McClane, and she is unintentionally the most hilarious character throughout this whole show. She just says the most outlandish shit I've ever heard in my entire life.
My reproductive organs are intact, my hygiene well maintained, and yet I have been unable to find a suitable marriage partner. At least one I'm not related to, and we have rules about that for a reason.
But the way this vault works is because they have such limited resources and cannot go to the surface, only a handful of people are allowed to procreate. Pretty much, it's just an arranged marriage. Now, I'm not really poking holes in these characters. For one, I think the fact that Lucy is fucking hilarious by again saying things like that really makes her stand out more, and it does give us some good insight on how things operate living inside of a vault. Quickly after, Lucy McClane is selected to marry someone from the other vault, being Vault 32 or 31. Then they celebrate the marriage. She still says some whack shit.
So what's your sperm count?
They do the deed, and then the guy cleans his dick on the curtains, and then her husband tries to kill her.
Mama warned me about women like you. I was hoping she was right.
Throughout watching this season, I really took notes on like time codes and whatnot of whenever cool stuff happens and when funny things happen. But most of my notes consist of Lucy McClane just being fucking hilarious. I love this character. Then something unexpected happens. Raiders show up and we're introduced to people from the surface. Then we're introduced to Mrs. Mardaver, who kidnaps Lucy McClane's father for reasons not yet explained to us. It's important to understand Lucy has spent a majority of her life in the vault. Then Lucy gets the idea to venture out of the vault and save her father, but Lucy has not ventured out of the vault in her entire life, and she has to search for her dad while never having been on the surface by herself. And I gotta say, I love this narrative of a daddy's girl, as they describe Lucy playing the fish out of water and having to go find her father. Shortly after, we're introduced to the Brotherhoods, who used to have 100% control over the wasteland, but for whatever reason they lost it. And a selected few of these members of the Brotherhood are sometimes assigned to be a squire to the knights that operate these armors called the T60s. One of these members being Maximus, who was not originally assigned a squire, injures his friend who was selected to be a squire. Shortly after, Maximus is assigned to be a squire to Knight Titus, where they are assigned a mission to locate and find the target, whose name I forgot. The target has a bounty on him because he was a scientist that found this pill looking thing that is the source to unlimited power. Then Maximus kills the knight he's supposed to be serving. And again, this show is just full of some unintentionally hilarious moments. Shortly after, Lucy is wandering around looking for anyone who can point her in the direction of Mardaver and her father. She shortly finds someone who knows exactly where to find her because the lady is the smuggler for the target that everyone in the wasteland is hunting for. But like I just said, the target has a bounty on him that everybody wants. So these group of men awake the ghoul to send him on the quest to find the target and receive the prize for them. The ghoul makes his way to Lucy and the lady smuggling the target, and they have an all-out shootout. Maximus shows up later with the T60 armor and he's kind of fucking up the ghoul. Lucy smuggles the target out, then Lucy cuts his head off because the scientist injected that pill thing in his neck. Then you kind of get the idea that's kind of how the show goes on for. But what I really do enjoy about the show is the backstory to the people who ran the vault, because this is what really makes the story so interesting. Meanwhile, Lucy is trying to get the target to Mardaver. The ghoul is chasing her. She and Maximus actually fall for each other, which is something that I did not see coming. And she becomes a badass throughout the show. Lucy, along with us, the audience, are finding out at the same time who the people of the vault really are. Because the people of Vault 33, where Lucy is from, just had their vault raided and a lot of their family members were killed. This act of violence makes the people of Vault 33 start to question their hospitality. A few members of Vault 33 begin to rebel and start to say things like, oh, we should kill the prisoners from Vault 31. And these citizens of Vault 33 are very civilized. They have rarely ever met anyone who isn't a stranger, because they only know the people within their vault and within their neighboring vaults. This sudden act of change where some members begin to seek out vengeance is very reminiscent of narratives that we have seen from the Nolan brothers before. And I for one love stories of mama boys or characters who were wronged seek vengeance and begin to question a lifestyle that they have only ever known their whole life. I fucking love that. Meanwhile, we have some characters who are infiltrators from Vault 32 and Vault 33. One of those characters being played by Leslie Uggams, aka Betty, aka Al from the Deadpool movies.
Fuck you.
And I just love the fact that I can finally see her in something where she's finally smiling. I think I'm just too used to seeing her in those fucking Deadpool movies. She, along with a bunch of people, are still alive after 219 years because most of them spend a majority of that time inside hyperbaric chambers. But to get to the backstory of Vault-Tec, this backstory takes place 219 years ago, and the dad of Lucy has a CGI face.
Everyone calls me Hank.
Anyways, so Cooper Howard is asked by Moldaver to spy on his wife, who is one of the chairmen or something at Vault-Tec. Then we hear these conversations on how Vault-Tec started this whole apocalypse. Vault-Tec wanted to essentially sell more vaults, but the question you may ask yourself is, why would people buy nuclear fallout vaults if there is no reason to buy one? Well, that's whenever Vault-Tec gets the idea to nuke the country of the United States. And these other chairmen get on board once they're told that if they approve on the behalf of nuking the United States, then they will have a spot inside one of these vaults and they are free to just make any rules and rule the votes in whichever way they seem fit. If they want to, I don't know, have a democracy, a monarchy, an oligarchy, you name it. They can just essentially play God in the votes that they rule. And again, it's not good for the victims of the vote, but I just love this part of the story. The ghoul is also just Cooper Howard. Apparently you can just turn yourself into a ghoul, which I didn't know. I don't know if that's how it is in the game, but I am totally on board with this. I love a good apocalypse story, and it's been a while since I've seen a good one. Overall, the effects and the cinematography looks really fucking good. The costume designs and the designs of the mutated creatures can be a little weird at times, but the ghouls and the mutants look really freaking cool at times. And I really do love Jonathan Nolan's way of showing over telling. The wasteland along with the mutated creatures really makes the surface look fucking disgusting. It looks so depressing and dry, but it all blends in together in a way that works. The narrative is really solid and there's nothing to poke holes in. The only things I've slightly made fun of are some of the outlandish shit that Lucy says throughout the show, and there's also like very suspenseful moments where absolutely nothing happens.
Initiate Protocol 53.
Again, I'm not using this as a critique, it's very clearly a purposely comedic moment that did make me laugh. I was laughing my ass off throughout this entire show. 10 out of 10, this one's hard to complain about.
You want one? That make you feel so good? You want to make my cock explode now?